Welcome to the September 13th, 2021 meeting of the Sandusky City Commission. 2 weeks ago, the war in Afghanistan came home to 13 American cities. Tragically, the Berlin Heights Milan community was one of those cities. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence in honor of Navy Corpsman Max Soviak, who gave his life defending this country and who is laid to rest today. We will have an invocation offered by Commissioner Waddington, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
God our Father, as we gather for this meeting this evening, give us the guidance and wisdom to make the proper decisions. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Presser, will you call the roll?
Mr. Poole?
Here.
Mr. Meinzer?
Here.
Mr. Brady?
Here.
Ms. Twine? Here. Mr. Waddington?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
May I have a motion to excuse Commissioner Murray from this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion? Without objection, the motion will be approved. Hearing no objection, that motion is approved. Are there any residents in the audience that have questions or comments pertaining to tonight's agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, staff. Tim Schwanger, 362 Sheffield Way, Sandusky, Ohio. A couple of items on the agenda this evening. Item number 5, which is the Cedar Point Causeway wetlands. Perhaps the city engineer can explain the city's long-term obligation for this project. I guess we're responsible for all maintenance issues going forward after this project is completed. On the same subject of wetlands in that area, we have the Pipe Creek Wildlife Area, which is just a little bit further east of this project. I was stopped earlier today by a Sandusky resident wanting to know if I could ask at this meeting if the city could contact ODNR and find out if they've done anything this year, as they have in the past, as far as opening up the gates on each cell, letting those cells flood, and then closing those gates for wildlife and for regrowth of native species. He indicated to me today that the floodgates were never opened this year, so it's kind of like, it seems like it's been abandoned. I don't know for sure because I haven't been down there. Like I said, he just stopped me before the meeting, so I intend to go down after this meeting to take a look. The other item on the agenda, which is going to be coming, I guess, after the public portion, is the swearing in of additional firefighters and perhaps maybe policemen. And my question would be, are these new hires filling obligations from 2008 and 2014 when we had layoffs? Or are these new safety service personnel just simply replacements for retirees and quits? Thank you.
Additional questions from the audience regarding the agenda items? Mr. Kresser, do you have any written communications or email communications regarding agenda items?
Mr. President, no, I do not.
Those questions will be addressed as that legislation comes before us. Commissioners, you have before you the minutes of our meeting of August 23rd, 2021. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Harris.
I move that we accept the minutes of the August 23rd meeting.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion? Without objection, that motion will be approved. Hearing no objection, that motion is approved. Commissioners, tonight we have the privilege to be able to swear in 2 new firefighters at this meeting. I'll ask City Manager Whoopser to come forward and perform that task.
Is Douglas here? Douglas, come on up. So welcome. Douglas, would you please raise your right hand? I, Douglas O'Donnell, recognizing my fundamental duty as a firefighter of the City of Sandusky Fire Department do solemnly swear to uphold the standards of my profession by safeguarding the lives and property of our citizens against the threat of fire and disaster.
I, Douglas O'Donnell, recognizing my fundamental duty as a firefighter of the City of Sandusky Fire Department, do solemnly swear to uphold the standards of my profession by safeguarding the lives and property of our citizens against the threat of fire and disaster.
I promise to obey the duly constituted laws of the United States of America, the state of Ohio, the city of Sandusky, and to accept the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, leadership, and trust, to be honored for as long as I remain a firefighter of the city of Sandusky Fire Department.
I promise to obey the duly constituted laws of the United States of America, the state of Ohio, and the city of Sandusky, and accept the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, leadership, and trust, to be honored for as long as I remain a firefighter of the city of Sandusky Fire Department.
I will continually strive to serve our community and be an influence for good for my fellow officers and firefighters to the best of my ability, so help me.
I will continually strive to serve our community and to be an influence for the good before my fellow officers and firefighters to the best of my ability, so help me.
Congratulations and stay safe.
You guys gotta poke some holes in those new shirts.
Show up with the
Hey, dude, these shirts come.
Zachary here, Strickler. Come on up, sir. You saw the last one. Congratulations. Please raise your right hand. I, Zachary Strickler, recognizing my fundamental duty as a firefighter of the City of Sandusky Fire Department, do solemnly swear to uphold the standards of my profession by safeguarding the lives and property of our citizens against the threat of fire and disaster.
I, Zachary Strickler, recognizing my fundamental duty as a firefighter of the City of Sandusky Fire Department, do solemnly swear to uphold the standards of my profession by safeguarding the lives and property of our citizens against the threat of fire and disaster.
I promise to obey the duly constituted laws of the United States of America, the state of Ohio, the city of Sandusky, and to accept the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, leadership, and trust, to be honored for as long as I remain a firefighter of the city of Sandusky Fire Department.
I promise to obey the duly constituted laws of the United States of America, the state of Ohio, the city of Sandusky, and to accept the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, leadership, and trust to be honored for as long as I remain a firefighter of the city of Sandusky Fire Department.
I will continually strive to serve our community and to be an influence for good before my fellow officers and firefighters to the best of my ability, so help me.
I will continually strive to serve our community and to be an influence for good before my fellow officers and firefighters to the best of my ability, so help me.
Congratulations, stay safe.
They have to get assigned. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
I want to take a moment to thank both of these new officers for coming to work for the city of Sandusky. I know that you'll make our residents proud and the department proud. You two look like firemen, I'll tell you that. You look tough, and you look young. Of course, if Mr. Murray was here, he'd say, to me, everyone looks young. Chief Green, you have some comments?
Yeah, through you, Commission President, I just want to give a quick introduction to the new firefighters of the city of Sandusky. Doug O'Donnell, he comes from the Vermillion area. He started August 31st, and he's assigned to the #1 shift under the command of Captain D'Amico. Zach Striffler, he's from Cleveland, Ohio. He started today. Today's his first day, and he's assigned to the #3 shift under my command. So I just want to thank the commission for allowing us to continue to replenish the personnel to the fire department. It helps out a lot. I just want to say thank you.
Chief Oliver, I believe that you have our newest officer to introduce to us tonight.
We do. Speaking of young, this is Austin Krauscher. He comes from us from, he's a Erie County resident. He was a reserve here at our office for a couple of months. He's filling a retirement. I know that was a question. He's replacing a retired officer. He was commissioned early last week by the city manager, and he started his field training time this past week. Austin, say hello.
Hello.
Man, a few words, I can say.
I've heard that.
Thank you, and again, thank you for taking this job, and we know you will make our city and our residents proud.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
You're off the hook. Commissioners, we have a public hearing regarding the rezoning of 431 Columbus Avenue tonight. That hearing will be conducted by our Chief Planner, Aaron Blair. As this is a public hearing, questions and comments will be permitted at the conclusion of the presentation, both by the public and by commissioners. Ms. Blair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Commission President Brady and fellow commissioners. Tonight, we are conducting a public hearing for the proposed rezoning of 3 parcels known as 431 Columbus Avenue, also the First Congregational Church, which is a historic structure on our commercial corridor, Columbus Avenue. I wanted to point out in your packet very quickly, there are 2 parcels omitted from this unintentionally. It shows a red line around the primary building. There's also 2 bays of parking directly to the west and directly to the north, and we will correct this. Obviously, it was omitted by accident, but those are the 3 parcels that are on the proposal for the rezoning tonight.
Where is this?
When we rezone a parcel, we want to be in following our strategic plan and our comprehensive plan, and this rezoning is proposed to house events such as weddings, adult art classes, the sale of local art, and in addition, transient rental units. This follows the city's bicentennial vision and our comprehensive plan because it will help the potential to build community, increase connectivity, and help shape Sandusky as a destination city. It's really exciting to see this historic property available to continue to be reused. The church has moved to a new location in Sandusky Plaza and put up the property for sale. The applicants are here this evening to answer any questions that you might have after the public hearing, Mr. Michael Cox and his wife Jackie. And with that, again, I want to conduct a public hearing. So if any resident is here to have a comment about this property, this is about the proposed rezoning of 3 parcels from public facilities to general business. And if you would like to come to the podium, please state your name and address.
Questions from the public, this public hearing? Commissioners, questions or comments regarding the public hearing? Wonder if the owner could step to the podium and I have some questions and more some compliments than some questions, really.
Absolutely. And join us and take my spot, and I'll step back for a second.
You have a very aggressive plan, and thank you for taking a leap of faith on that piece of property. I noticed that you plan on a variety of uses there, VRBO only being one of them, but it appears you're going to have a food service in that property also?
Probably not food service. No plan for food service at this point in time, no.
Okay, so it strictly is leasing residential property, VRBO stuff?
Well, it's a couple things, Commissioner Brady. It's VRBO, transient rental,
Yes.
Would be the main use. Obviously, it's a huge building by our estimation. So that takes up some spaces that are already naturally lending themselves to that type of use. There were classrooms and offices in that church already, so those would be converted into rooms for the most part. The sanctuary we'd like to maintain virtually unchanged. It's a beautiful space. Obviously has a lot of history in it, not only for Sandusky, but for the individuals who worship there, married there, had funerals there, those sorts of things. So we want to maintain that as much as we can, but make it available as a public event space for rental. Again, weddings, maybe concerts, those sort of things. What's that?
Small concert.
Yeah, small concerts. We'd like to even make it available to First Congregational Church to use for special events when they can. And then the balance of it, and my wife Jacqueline's here, and we talked about this a little bit at the last meeting. She's going to host some art classes there, offer art for sale from hopefully local artisans, and then office space probably, but most of the office space and storage would just be in support of those ventures.
You're certainly in a prime location for all those things.
That's our hope. As I explained at the last meeting, I think the downtown's booming, and there's not a whole lot of places for tourists to stay where they can foot traffic to downtown. So as I explained, hopefully group rentals, hopefully get people out who are maybe staying for the week out at Sports Force Park, have a tournament going on or something, hopefully get that whole team down here along with the parents and, get the restaurants and local establishments, more foot traffic. That way they're not just commuting in and out from 250 and those sorts of places.
Great. Thank you. Additional comments or questions, Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Harris.
So just for clarification, so do you envision like the transient rental being more of like that of like a hostel, for a lack of a better term? Like, because I noticed you said, I think you mentioned just something about like rooms. So is it kind of sort of along those lines or no?
I wouldn't term it a hostel necessarily.
Right. Yeah.
No, the way that we would envision it, and our hope is to have low turnover there. We hopefully not having people in and out every day. Our hope would be, like I said, to get maybe a couple of families that are traveling to Cedar Point and Islands together for 3 or 4 days to rent out the whole place. Then they would have their individual rooms to retire to at night, but it would have more of a community common area for TV, and there's a kitchen already there. We'd probably leave the kitchen open for their use so they can grocery shop and do breakfast there, that sort of thing. But probably not unaffiliated people in different rooms on the same night.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Excellent. Additional questions or comments, Commissioner?
Mr. Chairman, just say that's a wonderful vision and wish you the best.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Sounds great.
Thank you.
If there are no other comments or questions, I'll declare this public hearing closed. Commissioners, you have before you several communications from staff recommending various legislation. Can I have a motion to accept these communications?
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Without objection, the motion will be approved, and hearing no objection, that motion is approved. Commissioners, we have 3 consent items to consider this evening. Do any of you wish to move any of these consent items to the regular agenda? Ms. Cresser, will you present the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. President. Out of practice, and I forgot to do it, but we have the master at the podium. Item A, accepting the amounts and rates for the tax levies submitted by the Erie County Budget Commission. Item B is a payment to the Ohio Department of Transportation for the maintenance of State Route 2 for July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021. And item C is a change order, the first and final, for the 2020 shared driveway construction project that is a deduct.
Commissioners, having heard these items, ordinances, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Meiser.
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda items A through C and declare that the 2 ordinances and the 1 resolution is drafted and presented to the City Commission under consent agenda will take effect in accordance with section reflected in the ordinance or resolution, whether it be in accordance with section 13 or 14.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Cresser, you poll the commission on the motion.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
And now on the resolution and ordinances.
Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Those resolution and ordinances are passed. Prior to asking you to read number one, Ms. Cresser, I've failed in my duty to explain to the folks who were part of the public hearing that they do not have to sit through this entire meeting. You can slip out that door anytime you want. None of us are offended.
We'll take that information.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, have a good day. Ms. Cresser, will you now present item number one, please?
Yes, item number one is an ordinance amending the official zone map of the city of Sandusky to rezone parcel numbers 56-68032.000, 56-68031.000, and 56-6834.000, located at 431 Columbus Avenue from Public Facilities District to General Business District, and declaring that this ordinance shall take effect under suspension of the rules as contained in and in accordance with Section 13 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Waddington.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 13 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Cresser, will you call roll on the motion, please?
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Would someone go tell those two that their ordinance just passed?
They're dailies.
Ms. Cresser, will you present item number two, please?
Item number two is an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a contract with Advanced Excavating and Demolition, LLC, of Macomb, Ohio, for the CDBG fiscal year 2021 demolition project number one, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Twine.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under the suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Cresser, you call roll on the motion, please.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Waddington? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Waddington? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Cresser, you present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, item number three is an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into an agreement for professional design services with Stantec Consulting Services Incorporated of Cleveland, Ohio, for the Mills Street High Rate Treatment Project, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Harris.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Poole.
there seems to have been a request for us to hold up on this. Could you go over what this is, so we get a little more detail about whether or not we need to table this for 2 weeks or whatever? We are talking about this is.
Mr. Klein, you want to explain what we're doing in this, in item number three?
Yes, absolutely. Through the commission president, I can speak more on the technical side, the timing and the requirement to do the project. I would have to defer to the law director as far as the legalities behind the proceeding with the project. So back when I got here back in 2013 timeframe, we were negotiating with Ohio EPA on extending additional projects through our general plan, our long-term control plan, which was mandated by the EPA. At that time, they wanted us to do about $120 million worth of projects over a 10-year time frame. And through several rounds of negotiations, we got it down to around $20 million over a 10-year time frame. Those projects, the first group of those projects has been completed, which you guys recall the East End Sewer Project, the Pier Track Lift Station, Farwell Lift Station, and the Grit Tank. This is the last construction project within that first suite that we agreed to, and it has to be completed within 10 years. The completion date of this project is December 1st of 2024. And I know that seems like a long time. I've talked to two different consultants, and both of them have said that they expect this to be a minimum of an 18-month construction schedule and more likely closer to 24 months. That puts us at needing to start construction at December of next year, meaning that we only have about a year for design. Both of those consultants, one being Stantec, who this contract would go through, those two consultants both said we probably should have started the design of this back in May or June of this year. So they're actually really concerned about the timing, and it's imperative that we get this project and not get fined by the EPA. So what it really is this is the first phase of preliminary engineering for just over $410,000. There's a detailed evaluation that's needed because there's so many different high rate treatment technologies that are out there that we need to evaluate and figure out which one is going to be the best for the city of Sandusky's treatment system. That being cost effectiveness, which one treats our wastewater influent the best, and also which one has the smallest footprint. That is, that's one of the factors we're going to be looking at, because the last thing we want to do is affect the surrounding neighborhood, the surrounding park, Peerless Stove, who leases property off of us. So we're going to do everything we can to keep the footprint as small as possible. In this first phase, we're going to do the evaluation of those various treatment technologies. We'll have to do some field trips to see them in action. Then we're going to do some preliminary engineering, cost evaluation, some spatial analysis, and figure out exactly which one. And then we're going to come back at the beginning of next year to proceed with final design at the wastewater treatment plant. So I hope that answered your question about how important it is that we move forward with this project right now.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. I think you've given us a pretty good description of what it is we're doing. I'll turn, if I can, now to Mr. Heil to give us
Mr. Chairman.
I'll turn to Mr. Heil now to give us an explanation.
Mr. Chairman, I still have the
Mr.
floor.
Poole, I'm speaking, please.
I still have the floor.
You do not have the floor.
Really?
Mr. Heil, I would ask you to respond to Mr. Poole's request, which was why we are not taking this off the agenda tonight.
In short, there's no reason to take this off the agenda tonight. There's no issue with moving forward from a legal perspective on this project. And also, as Mr. Klein pointed out, we actually have a legal obligation to complete these projects by December 1st, 2024. So I can't speak to the engineering timeline, but my understanding is logistically time is of the essence, and also legally time is of the essence, so that we always comply with all of our legally obligated duties under our EPA permits.
Thank you, Mr. Heil. Additional comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Poole.
Thank you. It's for Mr. Klein. The county's request for us to hold this up, do they have an alternative that at all? I don't understand why they would ask us to do something we're not able to do. Are we suggesting that what we're doing is the only way this can be done to achieve the goals of the EPA? I mean, it makes little sense for them to ask us to hold this up. Have they got an alternative? Is that what the problem is? Are they offering an alternative?
Through the commission president, we supplied the scope of work and actually the RFQ several months ago. We supplied the RFQ, which detailed what we were going to be doing. And I have not heard any alternatives to this. And in fact, our NPDES permit is very specific. It says that we have to complete a 16 million gallon per day high rate treatment process at this location. It's not, or look at other alternatives. That's what you have to do.
Okay, we negotiated that, correct? And I'm not concerned. I'm trying to make sure before we go forward with this lawsuit going on, and obviously if the county brought this up, there's something going on that we're going to have to address down the road. And I want to be sure before I vote yes, we're going to move forward, that we have not ignored whatever it is that they may have maybe be suggesting. So I've read the email and the indication that we must do this, and that you indicated we may not. Is that the fact, we may not ask for an extension, which they said they'd pay the fee for? Is that correct? I guess that might be on the legal side. Now, I understand that you said we have no need to. The question is it accurate that EPA would never, or we may not request an extension as they have suggested?
Through you, Commission President, the answer is it's not that simple.
Okay.
The suggestion is just from the county is wildly inaccurate as to just paying a fee and getting an extension. It could open the entire permitting process, and we'd have to reevaluate, potentially incurring much more cost than the application filing fee. I think the recommendation is that this is the best path moving forward from a legal and engineering perspective.
Okay, that's what I want. I need to hear that, not just you just saying it out loud. I mean, having no clue. I'm not even sure what the HRT is. If you notice in this discussion, what do those initials even stand for?
I can't answer that. You'd have to ask him.
Yeah, so when you ask me to vote, I need enough information to act like I have some intelligent reason for voting yes for it. So that's the reason I question this, because there wasn't enough information provided. Thank you.
Mr. Trowell, I think perhaps you can make it crystal clear to this commission regarding this issue you shared with us. I think your opinion is that we do not take it off the agenda and move forward. But in addition to that, it is the opinion of our legal counsel in our litigation that is with the county now, Squires, that we do not take it off the agenda and that we move forward.
That's correct.
Thank you. That's all I needed to hear.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Meiser.
I wasn't here in 2015. This initiative started in 2015. I'm not going to speak to legalese or counties' proposals that I've heard any proposals that would help. I just know that we're dumping raw sewage into the bay, correct, Mr. Klein? And any reasonable person would think that since 2015, for 6 years, we've been dumping raw sewage, E. coli, and everything into the lake, the water we drink, the water we swim in and we boat in, and our recreation, our whole community is around Lake Erie. Why would we postpone this any longer? And if the county has an alternative to preventing that E. coli and that raw sewage going to the lake, we should hear it. Somebody should be at the podium tonight telling us how they will do it. That's just my 2 cents.
Additional comments or questions, Commissioners? Ms. Cresser, you call roll on the motion, please.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Waddington? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Cresser, we present item number 4, please.
Yes, item number 4 is an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into an agreement for professional services with KS Associates Incorporated of Elyria, Ohio, for the Cedar Point Causeway Wetland Project, Phase 1, related to the Sandusky Bay Initiative, and declaring that this ordinance shall take effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, have you heard this ordinance? What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Waddington.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion. Ms. Cresser, we call a roll on that motion, please.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Waddington? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Cresser, you present item number 5, please.
Item number 5 is an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a contract with Mark Schaefer Excavating and Trucking Incorporated of Norwalk, Ohio, for the Cedar Point Causeway Wetland Project, Phase 1, and relating to the Sandusky Bay Initiative, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Twine.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under the suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Mr. Klein, I wonder if you would, I think we know what, I think we understand that we're awarding a contract here that we've talked about for some time, but I wonder if you could speak to an earlier question regarding this item, regarding maintenance, and there was another question in there about floodgates not being open.
Yes, through the commission president, the project that we're doing is that Causeway Wetlands project, and as I've stated before, it's got several different phases or stages to it. This is the first phase where we're constructing the outer perimeter breakwater wall, and then next year the Corps of Engineers is going to come in and dump the dredge material. I believe they'll most likely get 2 cycles out of it. And then the following year, we're going to come back and reconstruct that wetland with the drier material, move the rocks around, and then do the native vegetation and planting. So I go through that to let you know that we do have what's called a draft adaptive management plan that we've worked with the Corps of Engineers, ODNR, Great Lakes Restoration folks, Fish and Wildlife, Ohio EPA, and there are requirements for that long-term maintenance. That does not come into effect, and the plan cannot be finalized until we complete that last stage of those native vegetations and those native plantings. And really, it has a performance monitoring, but everybody is aware that when you're talking about a project like this one, which you're hoping Mother Nature takes over and controls because she knows a lot more about it than I do, is that performance monitoring is somewhat subjective to what she would be able to do at that site. So we do have that plan, and it's in a draft version right now, and it's still going through those iterations with those other agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Additional comments or questions, Commissioners? Ms. Cresser, you call the roll on the motion, please.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. That concludes our regular agenda. We'll turn to our city manager for his report.
Thank you, Commission President Brady, commissioners, audience, and staff. I did want to start, we have a special guest tonight with us. Marcus Harris is the new Diversity and Economic Opportunity Manager for the city of Sandusky. It is a new position that's created from an existing vacancy that was in the budget that we slightly tweaked, and we'll have a focus on looking at the city's own policies as it relates to both hiring, boards and commissions, community outreach, to engage all of the community within Sandusky. It's also going to have a very strong workforce development, particularly focused on Sandusky residents, creating pipelines to employment opportunities, not only with the city of Sandusky, but in the entire community. We had a lot of support for this position from the Community Relations Commission, particularly Commissioners Blake Harris and Naomi Twine were involved. Commissioner Twine sat on the search committee for the position, and of the applicants that we interviewed, Marcus really rose to the top. He is a Sandusky native. He has significant workforce development experience, working with Youth Opportunities Unlimited, which works to place Cleveland youth in employment opportunities throughout Cleveland and Cuyahoga County. And in addition to that, had spent a great deal of time in management, particularly of local Starbucks chains in Sandusky and Northeast Ohio. So he's got some HR background that comes from that day-to-day management of those stores as well. Marcus is here tonight. If he'd like to introduce himself at the podium, please go ahead.
Welcome, Mr. Harris.
Thank you for the introduction, Eric. I'd just like to say that I'm very excited to be coming back home to do this important work for the city of Sandusky. This means something very special to me. So thank you for the opportunity to come up here and say a couple words. And I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And today's Marcus's first day with the city, so we're excited to get him up to speed and report back on those efforts over time. Moving on to the police department, you had a chance to meet Officer Austin Krauscher. He began his training last week for the fire department.
For the second year in a row, Sandusky Fire received the Lifeline EMS Gold Plus Award from the American Heart Association. The Sandusky Fire Department is part of an elite group of pre-hospital agencies recognized by the American Heart Association. The award recognizes commitment and success in implementing a higher standard of pre-hospital care by ensuring that every STEMI patient receives treatment according to nationally accepted recommendations and standards. And while we have come to, expect that type of service, we should never take it for granted, and it is a really high level that is provided here. Also, Sandusky Fire would like to thank Holler Sheet Metal and Janata and Herner for the work they performed on Station 7. Both companies made adjustments in their schedule to accommodate the fire department to prevent the station being closed for an extended period of time. Also for Finance, the next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for September 17th at 8 a.m. For Public Works, staff work to install 2 flagpoles on Columbus Avenue in front of City Hall. A ceremonial flag raising is being scheduled for the near future. And all splash pads, we want to let the public know, are shut down as of the Labor Day weekend. During a power failure at the wastewater treatment plant, the existing 1998 standby generator that operates the ultraviolet disinfection and aeration process at the end of the wastewater treatment became inoperable as of September 1st. The processes were still in normal operation on the main power supply, and permit requirements have been met, but it's imperative to run a temporary standby generator until a replacement unit can be purchased, and this is considered a health and safety emergency. And many of the rental companies that have this size of unit provided their mobile equipment to hurricane relief efforts. So staff worked hard to locate an available 500 kW unit in Columbus. It was delivered and operational as of Thursday, September 9th, and no permit exceedances occurred during that time frame. The monthly rental cost of $15,215.39 exceeds the $10,000 limit established by the city charter. Staff would like to get retroactive approval today to expend $30,430.78 of sewer capital funds in this rental for 2 months with the intent of presenting legislation at a future meeting. We're only bringing this to you after the fact due to the emergency nature of the situation. We'll work with manufacturers to determine availability and delivery time for a permanent replacement unit, so additional rental time will probably be needed. I'd ask for a motion to approve that amount.
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing no objection, that motion is approved. And that motion is approved.
Also, national recognition was being given for things that Sanduskians have really enjoyed this summer. As you are aware, the Osborne Engineers and City Architecture accepted an Engineering Excellence Award from the Ohio chapter of American Council of Engineering Companies for the design of Jackson Street Pier and Shoreline Drive. Also, thanks to the design and construction team from OHM, City Architecture, and Independence Construction, formerly known as Donley's, the Mylander Pavilion is one of 10 mass timber buildings throughout the country that has been nominated for award at www.woodworksinnovationnetwork.org. Also, residents are reminded there are 2 fall cleanup opportunities available. The first will be a drive-through drop-off day taking place on September 25th at the Shelby Street Boat Launch Overflow Parking Lot from 9 a.m. to noon. Again, that's Saturday, September 25th. And the second one, residents are welcome to drop off yard waste free of charge at Barnes Nursery at 1630 Camp Road in Huron on Saturday, October 9th and Sunday, October 10th. For questions or further details about these events, please contact 419-627-5829. Moving on to the community development, the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, or the CAPER, for CDBG funding year 2020 is in draft form. The CAPER contains a summary of the work that was completed during the last year. There will be a public hearing at September 27th, City Commission's meeting. A legal ad was published in the Register on September 10th containing this information. A public comment period started on September 10th and will be open until September 24th. The CAPER is due to HUD on September 30th. For the Planning Department, the city is 2 weeks into the 6-week series of conducting neighborhood ice cream socials on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. with follow-up meetings on Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. for those who can't attend on Wednesdays. We want to thank the commissioners who have joined staff and residents for these conversations. Staff encourage you to continue to join and invite your friends and neighbors in these areas of the city to attend. All events, dates, and locations can be found at cityofsandusky.com/neighborhoods. Other engagement events coming up include 2 informal public meetings that will be held to discuss transient occupancy overlay districts. These will take place on Monday, September 20th, and Monday, October 4th at 6:30 p.m. in the Fire Station Classroom, 600 West Market Street. Also, staff are holding a meeting with residents of the Cold Creek subdivision to answer questions and gather input for the future of their neighborhood, with the meeting taking place on Tuesday, September 21st at 5:30 p.m. in the Sandusky Career Center at 4501 Venice Heights Boulevard with the former Venice School. Arts and Culture Commission is Tuesday, September 21st at 5:15. Landmark Commission is Wednesday, September 15th at 5 p.m. Board of Zoning Appeals is September 16th at 4:30 p.m. Actually, that's been canceled. And the next Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, September 22nd at 5 p.m. And then finally, Sandusky Rec is excited for another fall season of programming. Rose Gold Gymnastics continues this September through December with monthly classes at the Erie County Fairgrounds. The Rec Room at 222 Megs will be hosting sign language and Spanish classes this fall, and a new dance class will take place in time for Halloween with the Monster Mash with Mookie. Participants will learn to choreograph dance in time for the downtown trick-or-treat schedule for Saturday, October 30th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. If your little one would like to create their own costume for the event, they can sign up for this fall's Make It So Easy class with Stephanie Brown Mayfield. That concludes my remarks for this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions or take comments. Thank you.
Commissioners, questions for a city manager? Next item on our agenda are items of old business. Commissioners, any items of old business?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Meiser.
You know, I started tearing up when I watched these rookies take the oath, and it's tough being an old guy. But 2 days out of 9/11, and I watched some training footage that most people probably didn't get to see, general public. When those kids take that oath, they take it serious. And never mind, I knew I wouldn't get through it.
I think, Mr. Meiser, Commissioner Meiser, I think we know where you're going with this. We all had a pretty steady diet of remembering this last.
Well, we started out with Max, and then, I remember Odoms and, Nathan Shirley. These guys, these young men are
serious business.
Pretty brave.
I think we should agree, very serious business.
Commissioner President Brady, just building on Mike Meiser's comments about the young firefighters and how much that means to him. It may have something to do with him feeling a little sentimental today on this, what is his 65th birthday.
Yeah.
So if we could all wish Mike a happy 65th birthday, that would be great.
Commissioner Meiser, we're not going to sing to you, but we are going to share with the public that you're getting quite a bonus now that you are now eligible for Medicare.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
It's now on the door.
Pick up your golden Buckeye card at the door.
Pay them taxes.
Additional items of old business, Commissioners. Items of new business, Commissioners. I have 3. I'm prepared to submit to the Commission for their approval my selection of the required 3 electors to serve on the Fire Chief Search Committee. They are Levada Wilson. Ms. Wilson serves as the Erie County Clerk of Courts. Drew Meredith. Mr. Meredith is the Director of Marketing and Recruitment for Firelands Regional Medical Center. And Lee Alexakos. Ms. Alexakos is recently retired from Cedar Fair and has served them as Director of Marketing and then Community Relations. By our charter, the chairperson of the Civil Service Commission is appointed or appoints a member of the Civil Service Commission to the selection committee. I spoke with Mr. Vince Rhodes, the chairman, and he has appointed John May as their representative. Again, by our charter, the president of the city commission or my representative serves as the chairperson of the search committee, and I will serve in that role. I would ask for a motion to accept my recommendations, and I believe that needs to be done individually. So I would ask for a motion to accept Ms. Levada Wilson to serve on the Fire Chief Selection Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Cresser, will you poll the commission?
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meiser?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
That appointment is set. Now, if I may have a motion to accept Mr. Drew Meredith to serve on the Fire Chief Selection Committee.
Second.
A motion and a second discussion. Ms. Cresser, will you poll the commission?
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meiser?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meredith is selected, and I will ask for a motion to accept Ms. Lee Alexakos as a person for the Fire Chief Selection Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second discussion. Ms. Cresser, you poll the commission on that selection.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Those selections are set. Thank you. Additional item under new business, I must request a motion to set a public hearing for the September 27th City Commission meeting regarding the 2020 CDGB annual report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second discussion. Ms. Cresser, you poll the commission on that motion.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
That public hearing is set. I have an additional request to set a public hearing for the meeting on October 25th regarding amendments to the Planning and Zoning Code, Chapter 1157, Floodplain Administration of the City's Code of Ordinances. Could I have a motion for that, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Cresser, you poll the commission on that motion.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Waddington? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
That public hearing is set. Any additional items of new business, commissioners? Quiet envelops the room. Ms. Cresser, do you have any comments, written or email, regarding items of city business to be read into the record?
Yes, Mr. Brady. The first was from Sharon Johnson, 1139 Fifth Street, asking what percentage of completion phase is the Pike building job? Why is the city allowing the project to drag on using COVID as an excuse as to why the building cannot be completed in a timely manner? Taxpayers paid $43,000 for financial consultants to do a study on the city's finances. Is the report completed, and if so, why haven't the results been discussed publicly, or how much longer will it be to obtain the report? The second one is from Matt Ames, 2204 Mill Street. It is a rather lengthy email that I had forwarded to two staff members today regarding the grant funding for the golf course. Did you want the entire thing read into the record, or can we follow up with?
If you can get it in under 5 minutes, we'll listen to it for about 5 minutes, and then we'll send it to everybody.
Okay. So Matt Ames, 2204 Mill Street. My comments and questions are in regards to Resolution 027-21R, grant application to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for the Mills Creek Golf Course Trail Project from the May 24 City Commission meeting. My neighbors and I were excited to learn that this resolution had passed and the grant awarded to develop the Mills Creek Golf Course for off-season by installing additional trails inside the park. We were under the assumption, based on the minutes of the commission meeting, that this would be a project that connects existing golf cart trails to form an interconnected fitness trail that could be utilized by the public for walking and biking use during the golf off-season. This assumption was presumed based upon our city commissioners' comments prior to voting on this resolution. Mayor Brady is quoted as saying, it is a golf course, but anything we can do to get more play out of all of our facilities benefits all residents, whether that be walking, biking, or any activity deemed appropriate. The mayor went on to say that he appreciates them being proactive in that approach. My neighbors and I full-heartedly agree with the mayor's comments and also appreciated that proactive approach. Commissioner Poole, demonstrating that he had reviewed plans of the completed project, specifically asked Mr. Whirling 2 detailed questions from those sets of plans. He asked whether the yellow lines on the plans were existing trails or proposed new ones, and how wide the proposed new trails would be. In hindsight, I find it interesting how Mr. Whirling answered Commissioner Poole's first question about what the yellow lines indicated. He stated that some of the yellow lines were existing trails while some were new. Though I have not reviewed the plans firsthand, I will say that this is not how plans are drawn up. Typically, a set of plans for a project like this would delineate the difference between existing and proposed new trails with different colors and/or symbols. So Mr. Whirling's answer struck me as odd. At our ice cream social last week at MacArthur Park, my interest in the details of this project were directed to Mr. Tom Horseman. His reply was this, quote, "At this point, the city has received grant funding to install a pathway along hole number 1 at the golf course. This work will be done by city staff and will commence in November. This will allow easier access to the sledding hill in the wintertime. The intent would be to eventually create a path loop to connect the whole course, and staff are looking at additional funding opportunities for that. There is no set time frame for that larger project, though," end quote. So now there is no time frame for the larger project. It was implied based on a set of plans submitted to the commission and the discussion from our commissioners that this would be what the resolution and associated grant award would be delivering. If this is indeed the case, we on the South Side neighborhood are very disappointed, and it only reinforces our concerns for how committed our city leadership is with the revitalization of our neighborhood. This makes us suspicious that the resolution was sold to benefit the neighborhood, but will end up only benefiting the golf course and those that golf. Is this additional pathway from hole number 1 to the hill really for sledders during the winter, or is it really just a new golf cart path for golfers? My accusation is based on reason and common sense. This path will be covered in snow and will not be visible unless a city employee gets out there, plows it, and de-ices it. Is that going to happen on a snow day or during a winter storm? That's yet to be seen. So the question begs to be asked, who really benefits from this resolution? Because it doesn't sound like it's going to be my neighbors who desire walking and biking inside the Mills Creek Golf Course and will only nominally benefit sledders in the winter. Can anyone on the commission speak to the details of this project, and were they aware of the limited scope of work to be performed from this grant? How committed is the city to following through on the completion of this project? Where will the funds come from, and what would be a time frame for completion? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crusher. Any additional written or email?
No, just those two, Mr.
Any folks in the audience wish to speak to the commission on any items regarding city business?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nick Etzerison with First Energy Ohio Edison. Good to see you all. I haven't seen you all in a few months, so just wanted to stop by, make sure there was no outstanding issues or questions with anything Ohio Edison related in any of your areas that I can address while I'm here.
Questions or comments for First Energy?
None. Well, if you need me at any time, storms, street lights that are out, any issues within your neighborhood, just give me a call. Happy to help.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks you.
Additional questions or from the audience or comments from the audience?
Greetings, everyone. Tom Lamarca, 206 48th Street. I'll try and be upbeat a bit. The bands on the pier, I loved them. I mean, allegedly I'm a usual suspect down there, but I am. I enjoyed the bands at the pier. Probably less than 2% of the population of the city of Sandusky enjoyed the opportunity to hear the music. The band last week, the Hitmen, were fantastic. I heard nothing but great comments. The only downside I heard at all through the season was the band should have been turned a little more to the east so the sounds didn't bounce off of the glass in the Chesapeake building. So that's a thought for next year. And then the docking situation, we've got the boats that are coming in. I like the boats coming into the harbor on that slip, even though we've got the transient marina next door. Perhaps we need to put the honor box over on the east side and see if the boaters will pay attention to that if we have the proper signage in place. And we also need some signs where the good time docks, because Saturday there was a boat docked, a pleasure boat docked where the good time belongs and pays rent for, and had the good time come in, it would have been a real problem because they had to crush that boat. And as recent as this afternoon or this evening, there's a boat actually docking on the south end, which surprised me, picking up people. I don't know for what reason, but multiple stops coming and going. So We need some signs out there. Along that dockage side on the east wall, down at the water line, there's some eye bolts sticking out about 10 or 12 inches. So we've got a hazard problem out there, Mr. Klein or Mr. Whoops or someone, because if a dock is going to, or a boat's going to be permitted to dock along that wall, the side of the boat's going to get ripped out, and then who's going to be liable for that damage? So that is a concern. Let's see, what else do I have here? I'm trying to get through my 5 minutes of fame. The ice cream socials. I really believe that needs to be two-way communication. We need the folks that live in those neighborhoods to be able to ask a question of Eric or whatever city person is there, or commissioner, what have you, and their neighbor be able to hear the answer to that question, because they've all got questions. Some are a little timid and afraid to ask a question, but they all need to have some participation. And I think that once the concerns and answers or questions are answered, maybe that will solve some other problems down the road. I'm happy to see that the police and fire personnel are finally adding some people. I'm still waiting and watching to see if we're going to meet the 2008 staffing levels that we had through attrition, and I'm kind of hesitant to say I think we're going to miss that level. I'm also disappointed that we continue to hire management, upper level people within the city with big salaries, and not hiring the operators, so to speak, the guys and gals that get out there and turn a shovel or a blade, run a piece of equipment, and that's what we need. We need more people doing the job, less people saying how to do the job. We don't need to keep creating new positions with these high salaries. That's it for now.
Thank you, Mr. LaMarca. Additional comments from the audience?
Thank you again, Tim Schwanger, 362 Sheffield Way. I'm hoping if Mr. Klein is still listening that I get a follow-up on the Pike Creek Wildlife Area, if I could, from him, through an email, whatever. Speaking as a lifelong resident, not as a city commission candidate, based on my experience, I've attended several hundred city commission meetings, staff meetings, project meetings, city manager meetings on projects. And, based on those meetings, it's always been a dialogue between whoever was in those meetings from the resident side, who was in those meetings from the staff side, city commission side. That goes all the way back to the 5 years ago when we had the neighborhood initiative meetings where we went to the 6 different neighborhoods. We had open discussion, open dialogue, so everybody could hear what everybody else had to say. Fast forward to 2021 with the ice cream socials, which have turned into a sort of follow-up meeting on neighborhood initiatives. That dialogue has been closed down, stifled by city staff. I assume it by city staff. Personally, I feel that's unfortunate. I think that it behooves city staff to hear everyone's concerns. It behooves all the neighbors to be able to hear their concerns and get answers, instead of having to go up to a chalkboard or a noteboard and write down your concerns, which I understand that's how consultants, when they have their meetings, that's what they do. And we now have a city planner who is a former consultant. So I assume that it was her idea to go this route. But as Mr. LaMarca said, I personally think, and other people that were at the last ice cream social meeting felt that was not the process to follow. I question, why would city staff not want to hear what other people had to say? Why would they not want other neighbors to hear what their neighbors have to say? These meetings should be held so that neighbors get to know their neighbors. If they don't know them, that's an opportunity for them to introduce themselves to each other, one another, and hear what each one has to say. And I think moving forward, I believe the city commission has the authority, the ability to go back and tell city staff that we need to change this process, and that's what should happen, instead of trying to, as a matter of fact, at the last one we had at MacArthur Park, the residents in that area took it upon themselves to deviate from that process. And they tried, city staff tried to stifle that. There were 12 city employees there out of 20 people. There were 12 city employees at that meeting. And they all should have heard the same comments from each and every neighbor at that meeting, not have to go up and go up to a notepad and write down your comments.
Thank you.
Additional comments, audience?
Jennifer Ashburn, 2112 Parkview Boulevard, Sandusky, Ohio. I was at the last ice cream social, and I wrote down 3 questions for the board, for the council. And I'm just wondering, am I going to hear back from you? What is going to be done about that? If I felt like it was an open dialogue, that I could ask the question and then I get an answer right away, I'd feel much better about that. But since I have been living out there for the past 10 years and asking questions for the past 10 years, I don't feel that I have gotten an answer yet. So with the last one, when we wrote down the 3 questions that you requested, I'm just wondering when we're going to hear a response from that. Thank you.
Additional comments from the public? Commissioner Mudge?
Yeah, I'd just like to take a moment. The last 3 people up at the podium said they were at the last ice cream social. I was at the last ice cream social that was 10 o'clock in the morning the next day, and the residents in that neighborhood were very upset. The only comments I heard were that it was hijacked. They felt intimidated by people that did not live in the neighborhood. So they were not very happy that people came from outside the neighborhood. Mrs. Ashburn wasn't there. The 3 of you weren't there, and the conversation went very smooth. There was nothing what you're talking about. I didn't go to the one you went to, but I went to the next one, and they did not like that outsiders came to their neighborhood meeting. That's what I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Miser.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Poole?
Yeah, with regard to the golf course and that project, could we have at the next meeting the manager clear that up? I also was under the impression that that was going to, be utilized as he described, and perhaps I was misinformed. But just bring the public up to date at the next meeting. What's really going to be changed, what's going to be added, what the timeline is, and more specifically, do you have somebody signed that's going to clean up the pathways off so that people could actually walk in? And we may already do those
Yes,
things.
Mr. Burling to respond, directly to Mr. Ains, but he can certainly respond to this commission too.
That would be fine.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, I'm not sure, with regard to the meetings that they're talking about, I wasn't in either of them, but folks that went to the meeting on Thursday night, you're saying they came again the next day, and the same people?
No, I don't know. Oh, yeah. There were some people that were there both times.
They came, okay. I presume you got a sign-in sheet, because it really doesn't make a whole bunch of sense, because they get to sit.
I'll give you names.
No beig deal, no problem. I'll look at signs, it makes sense.
I got names.
Since there's only 8 people there.
Have a small bit of,
Oh, there were more than 8 the next day?
Yeah, the next day might be.
have a small bit of housekeeping that I want to clear up. We have returned, obviously, we've returned to in-person meetings and done away with virtual meetings for commissioners. We're still asking some staff to be safe and to keep us safe and themselves safe by being in their offices. But we are going to return, beginning at our next meeting, to only receive comments from people that attend the meetings. We are not going to read into the record comments or emails regarding agenda items or city business. We will always receive those. We'll always answer those questions, but we're not going to read them into the record. That started with the process of being removed from the commission chambers. Now we've returned, and that concept of spending, as Ms. Presser did tonight, 5, 6, 7 minutes reading a voluminous list of questions from a candidate into the record is not going to occur anymore. So it's kind of like some drawings that you attend. You got to be present to win, and in this one you got to be present to make a comment. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We're adjourned.